You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we will be talking about all of the action from the first test between England and New Zealand. Then, about 25 seconds after we've started that, we'll move on to the second and final test between England and New Zealand. We've got Devon Conway breaking records. We've got Kane Williamson trying to make cricket fun again. We've got Joe Root making sure that doesn't happen. And we've got the return of Dominic Bess. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross?
Marvellous, thanks. Good to be back after missing the last couple of shows.
And Max Roy Brown. How are you doing, Max Roy Brown?
Oh yeah, I'm very well, thank you, Jack. All booked in for my my COVID jab, so looking forward to getting microchipped.
Yeah, as am I. I'm next Tuesday. What are you, Friday?
Friday, yep.
Oh, the government are going to get you, boys. The government are going to get you. You're in Bill Gates' pocket, mate.
As ever, or on these shows anyway, the shows that aren't daily shows, we start off with a question of the week. And this week's question is based around the big news in the wider world of sport, which was that a YouTuber, like us actually, Logan Paul, he didn't get knocked out by Floyd Mayweather in an 8-round fight, which is quite impressive. And my question to you two fellas is, which cricketer would you most like to see in the ring against Floyd Money Mayweather? Max, you look like you've got a good answer here.
So I've decided that Floyd Mayweather has had far too much of an easy time in these exhibition fights. He's fought a YouTuber and a man who clearly has no boxing talent whatsoever and danced around them both. So what he needs is a formidable cricketer to come up against. So that is why I've gone for the undefeated heavyweight champion of cricket boxing, Jesse Ryder, who in 2 bouts has 2 knockouts, one inside 2 minutes, and he's got a high edge, so he's got the reach, he's got a weight advantage as well. So and he has some pedigree. So I think it would be nice for Floyd Mayweather to box someone who's actually boxed before, for once, and. Never mind that it was also against some other broadcaster and some fat YouTuber. But why not? Let's step it up a gear. And
Jesse Ryder. I like that. Ross, what are your thoughts?
No, I've not gone down that route. I don't typically want to wish physical punishment on anybody, but this is the route that I've gone down in this one. Because I think if that someone is an obtuse, kind of arrogant, morally bankrupt and repugnant individual, then I'm okay with it. And I think other people will be okay with it. So I've gone with disgraced Pakistani captain Salman Butt. I cannot stand him. He's on punditry still. He's still involved in the game. And I think that's a real detriment to Pakistani cricket. And I'd quite enjoy him being in the ring with Floyd Mayweather in the morally righteous world that is world boxing. So
you know what he'd do though? He'd take a bung to go down in the first round, and he'd just make more money. And joke's on you, really, on that one, I think, Ross.
Oh, in an exhibition match, is that how it works? Can you still bet on an exhibition match?
Sure you can.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure 100% sure you can. Yeah. Maybe not through the bookmakers that we might use, but there'll be someone taking bets on that. So I had to think about this, and I thought, Ross, a bit like you, that it would be quite funny to see someone take some punishment. And I kind of thought someone being cut down to size might be quite good. So KP and Virat Kohli were my initial thoughts. 2 people who 100% think they could beat Floyd Mayweather in a fight. And they've got no doubt about it in their minds, but it would be, fun to see that happen. But then I thought, actually, this is a really good marketing opportunity for cricket that we've been presented with here. And if we can get a cricketer to actually, fight and win, then that's great for the growth of the game. So, Max, I really liked your Jesse Ryder suggestion on that front. I had some different thoughts. I thought Pujara, he could do a Homer Simpson, just take loads of punishment. If that didn't work, Jack Russell's another one, similar to Pujara in that he can take, kind of defensive, but also has the reflexes to maybe hit back. I found out, I did some research. There's this guy called Rick McCosker who went out to bat against England in the 70s with his jaw wired back together after he'd been hit by a bouncer from Bob Willis. So he'd probably have a decent chance just because of like the sheer pain he's obviously able to tolerate. But ultimately, I landed on Inzamam, the only cricketer I've actually seen in a proper fight. He went in the crowd. He took on a whole crowd of Indians, and I think probably won. Judge's decision. It wasn't unanimous, but from what I've seen, Inzamam was a clear winner there.
Judges' decisions never are unanimous in boxing, are they? Unless they're loaded in favour of the home crowd.
Exactly. I think Inzamam, he's got credentials that other people just don't have on that front. So that's where I went. Ross, do you have any messages for our listeners?
Yes, you should like and subscribe to this video and our YouTube channel. You should also follow us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And we're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. So the runs keep on flowing for us three. And we're sponsored by a great bat manufacturer. If you need a bat, go to them.
We should also say that you should go to another platform and follow us as well. So if you're on YouTube, head over to iTunes. You want to be able to play across all the formats, as we said before, and the way to do that is to follow us on Spotify and on YouTube. And we're on Patreon, and we've reached our initial target of 10, and we blasted through it. In fact, we've moved to 11, so we're well into double digits now. We're thinking about our next landmark, which last week we were back around. Maybe that's drinks. We're not really sure what drinks is in terms of Patreon. But or 25. When do you remember in kids cricket you retired at 25? That would be a better target to aim for now, wouldn't it?
All right, yeah, let's go with that.
Cool. Do we want to take a break, or for editing purposes, do we want to just barrel straight on to the test match?
Let's go straight through.
Let's go straight on to the test match. So we're going to talk about England taking on New Zealand in the first test match, the most pointless test match ever. We postulated before the match began, and it lived up to that billing, didn't it, Max?
Yeah, actually, after starting off in a fairly fairly engaging, I'd say, quite absorbing way, looking fairly nip and tuck and quite even. A bit of to and fro with Conway streaking away, and then Markwood dragging things back. We were looking like maybe we might be in for some excitement, but then we had rain, so that ruined things to start with, and then New Zealand dangled the carrot in a desperate attempt to try and revive some life from proceedings, but the English horse had clearly eaten its fill and lost its appetite, so just went for a little postprandial nap instead in the stable. So it was a little bit of a letdown by the end, but you said it was pointless, and I think in the context of test series and cricketing test series, it probably is a little bit, but there were things I think that were worth getting out of it, mainly a look at individual performances. So I think that's how we'll start the review of this game, I suppose. Let's have a look at see how various people did. Obviously, man of the match, Devon Conway's 200 was the standout performance, though there were some other good showings. Jack, you and I talked about that a bit last week, but obviously we were without Ross. So having not heard from you yet, Ross, what did you make of Devon Conway's debut double ton?
I would have been annoyed in the way in which he got out. No, but just being a batsman in that scenario where you're 200 on day, you couldn't be any better as a Test batsman. You're winning the toss, opening up, you're on 200 runs, and then your number 11 runs you out. It's still going to rankle with me. That's still going to piss me off. But it was just great to see one, a batsman go in and do that, especially at Lords. Two, it was nice to see that England's selection policy of pick a good South African works very well for New Zealand. So
I feel like it's a bit of a shame for Devon Conway. Of all the people involved in this test match, he's the one that I feel actually sorry for, that this ended up being a draw. Obviously, when you lose an entire day of play, it's going to be hard to force a result, particularly on a pitch a bit like this. But I thought, and I tweeted at the time, and some people didn't believe us. I said something along the lines of that batting performance from Conway and New Zealand deserves to win this test match, because I thought it really was good. And I'd stand by that now. I think putting up 375 there, putting England under pressure, midway through the second day, scoring more than half your runs, carrying your bat, well, not quite carrying your bat. It was remarkable. And the rain, who, once again is England's salvation, has really done a number on him there. And I wouldn't be frustrated with Neil Wagner. I would be frustrated with the rain if I were
the
Devon
rain
Conway.
padding out its stats yet again. Oh, that's another one for rain.
Well, I was frustrated with the rain. I was looking forward to settling in for a nice Friday at work with the cricket on in the background. I had no meetings, so no interruptions there. Nice bit of background watching, but no,
the government getting their good money out of you yet again, Max.
Oh, you can work and have the cricket on in the background, can't you? It's only Test cricket.
What about other performances, Max?
Well, yeah, there was one other Centurion in the match, of course, and that was Rory Burns, who has been under a fair bit of pressure, I think, lately. Had a bit of a tough time in India, having flown in late because obviously the birth of his first child meant he missed the Sri Lanka series, and then he was dropped into a cauldron of spin. But he's averaged, I think averaged under 10 in his last 5 or so games for England. So definitely needed a performance. As far as I can see, needed a performance to turn things around, and an excellent century from him. How important do you think that was, Jack, in the context of his England place? And did it impress you? Did you think it was an impressive 100?
Well, definitely an impressive 100. Definitely, and 2, definitely salvaged his England career to some extent. I think going into this match, Burns, Sibley, Crawley, Pope, Lawrence, we knew that they weren't all going to make it to the rest of the summer, were they? Some of them have to make way for Ben Stokes. One of them might also have to make way for Joss Buttler if England decide to go with the kind of Sam Curran and Chris Wokes at number 7 approach. So there's 2 of 4 or 5 of them aren't going to make it. He might have been top of the list. England, obviously, they really want Crawley to succeed. I think they see Crawley as an opener, maybe in the longer term. And because of Sibley's age, I think he probably was, slightly less high up the being dropped pecking order. And now it's completely reversed. Burns has got, we were joking about in our WhatsApp chat, how many ducks from here would it take for Burns to be dropped? He's got at least 7 or 8 ducks in a row that he could get from this point and still maintain his place. I don't expect that to happen. I expect him to get some more runs over the summer. I think he's kind of put the deposit down for his flight to Australia, hasn't he? I don't know if he's paid in full, but the airline have got some of his money.
Yeah, I thought it was good to see. I like Rory Burns. I like that he's gritty. I like that he's unconventional. I like the swashbuckling pirate look that he's kind of adopted.
It's just missing a bandana. That's the only thing.
But it was just because, Max, I completely agree. Like, this New Zealand bowling lineup is a good bowling lineup, especially with the new ball. It's something that keeps coming at you, and I think he did really, really well. And he also, against Australia when they were last over in 2019. Like, he wore plenty of the short stuff. Here, he looked like he could play the short ball. He's clearly been working on playing the short ball, and he wasn't really getting that in India. He was just missing the straight ones to Akshar Patel or whatever. But I thought it was a really good innings, Max.
Do you think it helps Rory Burns' cause that he has someone batting alongside him who looks even more weird than he does at the crease?
What, the fridge?
The fridge
with his eyebrows.
The vicar.
I think it's a good opening partnership. I don't think England actually have a better opening partnership at the moment. And it was, as you say, I was unfortunate that Burns was averaging 10, but Zach Crawley wasn't averaging much more, and either was the others. So
you have to bear in mind where some of those 10 were scored, like that. Some of that average of 10 was compiled as well.
No one averaged very high in that series.
Look, I don't think this Test match wicket was great for Test cricket. I think it was a great pitch, but you could bat on it. Like it was possible to score runs, as we saw over the 4 days. And I think we probably would have had a result if we'd had that day back from rain. Might have been slightly too in favour of the batter, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But I feel like you should judge a player like Rory Burns based on his ability to handle teams like New Zealand in conditions like he handled them in this test, not based on, lottery ball. Sorry, listeners. In the Ahmedabad Stadium with that pink ball.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
Max, what did you think of Mark Wood's bowling? Because Mark Wood was a bit of a role. Like, he was the one who got the fight back going for England. Like, at one point, New Zealand was just like, 450s on here. And then he kind of, I don't know, found another gear and started attacking the middle order. And they looked a little bit taken aback. They looked a bit afraid of Mark Wood.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last time, I think. But basically he fulfilled the role that he's clearly been given for England, which is run up and try and bowl the ball as fast as you possibly can. And at first, it wasn't working very well. Partly because Devon Conway was in supreme form, and I think partly because the pitch was looking a little bit slow on the first day and seemed to quicken up and certainly get a little bit more bounce off the surface, I think, by the second day. But once they'd made that first breakthrough, you could tell that the guys who came in after that were a little hurried. I think in particular it was Santner's wicket that was quite bizarre, wasn't it? He somehow managed to play a forward defensive with his bat facing down and lobbed it up to mid off, and I think that was definitely a man who was sort of feeling around for a ball that was coming at him a bit quicker than he was comfortable with, and it was nice to see.
The note section, Max, on a scorebook. You can put some notes in. I reckon you could put Santner didn't fancy it just as a normal note, and that would be perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's all credit to Mark Wood for keeping on going and actually keeping his pace up. He bowled a fair few overs in that first innings. He got through 27 in the end, which is probably not the plan. I think part of the reason for having those four seamers is that you can bring Mark Wood on in shorter bursts and maybe not have him bowl as many overs as Robinson and the others. But he kept it going, and I'm happy for Mark Wood. How can you not be happy for Mark Wood? He's such a smiley looking gentleman. You always want him to do well.
Indeed. Who else is on our list of praise then, Max? Is anyone on the list of shame?
I think we're on the we're sticking with England. I think we've run out of we've got one more bit of praise to dish out, haven't we? I think in terms of the performance, if we forget about everything else that's going on.
You separated the art from the artist.
We're separating the art from the artist for a moment, yes.
What's Tim Southey done?
The two England's two new boys, Ollie Robinson. We'll start with Ollie Robinson, and Ollie Robinson's bowling, not Ollie Robinson's 19-year-old tweeting. Looks good to me. I would say at this point, I'd say, has he now got his foot in the door for an England place? But we can't have that conversation now because.
I would be really surprised. And I think we're going to talk about this in the preview part of the show later on. Mm-hmm. But I would be really surprised if he's not back for 2 or 3 at least of the tests against India, based on the way he bowled. I thought, to be really honest, he was England's best bowler across the piece.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think something's up with Broad. Who knows what it is? But he's taken 1 wicket in 5 or 6 Test match innings. Anderson was a bit unlucky. Moved the ball around well. Had one of those games where nothing quite worked. We talked about Wood, but I thought Robinson, by a distance, actually was the most threatening, most troubling of the England players. And Southey's one spell aside, probably the bowler of the game, in my view.
Yeah, I think I'd concur with that, Jack. And I think when you take 4 for in your first Test innings, and then you get 3 in the second innings. Lords isn't an easy place for some bowlers to come, especially with a reputation when you just like that puts it on the spot. How many times have we heard that before? Of yes, he's a really promising bowler, and they go to bits because they don't know how to bowl with a slope. Like so many times that happens, and actually he was on it from pretty much the first over. I think he bowled a no ball first ball up. But then from then on was really good. Hit his lines, hit his lengths, did the job that he was supposed to do, and clearly had a bit of a plan to keep on doing what he was doing. So I think it was a really strong debut. It was just very unfortunate about his sordid past.
Yeah, I think the trick to it as well, just going to it in a little bit more deepness. I was going to say there, but that's not.
We'll go with depth. That sounds
deepness.
Sounds better.
Here comes our deepness dive.
He, I thought, was one of the few players to actually get seam movement out of that pitch. If you look across the pitch, we've sort of talked about how New Zealand were threatening, but they were threatening with ball movement in the air. And basically the analysis of that is if the ball's moving in the air, that's good, but it's nowhere near as good as if you're able to get it to move off the pitch. The batter has longer to adjust. You can see, obviously you can see it for ages. You don't get what, some people describe as a tunneling effect, in that if you bowl an in-swinger and an out-swinger, they do different things in the air. So if you're a batter at an elite level, you will be able, you get forewarning in order to play that in a different way.
And you could possibly also read it out the hand.
Exactly. If you get seam movement, you don't have time to react to how that ball deviates off the pitch. And when conditions are really difficult in England, as I'm sure we'll see when India turn up, by the way, I'm sure they'll really roll out a few green decks later in the summer. When things are really difficult, it's because Broad and Anderson are actually getting it to go off the pitch as well. So you get movement in the air, which some batters or some away batters aren't experienced playing with, which is problem one. But it's when it moves off the pitch as well that you get like real problems.
Yeah, the in-swinger that jags away and clips the top of off.
Exactly.
That's the one we all like to see, isn't it? And a May in England. I
thought Robinson's skill basically was that because he bowls from basically the same height as Kyle Jamieson, the release point's the same height as Kyle Jamieson. It's coming into the pitch with a lot of energy. It's hitting the same spot over and over again, which means the batter has to play. And it also gives the ball the best opportunity to move and go past the bat. And I thought that basically was why he was good. And that's why I'm pretty sure we'll see him back playing for England after he has, whatever the ECB are going to do.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's fair. It's nice to see. Another bowler come in and give us a little hope of what we can expect after Broad and Anderson's inevitable. I'm not going to say demise, but because that seems a little dark. But they're not going to be around forever. It's unless Bionic Anderson is allowed. I think we may have touched on that before. Someone who might not be around for that long after this series. James Bracey, he didn't have a great debut, did he? Didn't last long with the bat, and his wicket keeping wasn't exactly enough to keep him in the side on that basis.
Well, I think he basically said mid-game that I'm in this to be a batter. I think he said it after he'd got the duck. I don't think he sees the wicket keeping as an actual way for him to break into and stay in this England side. I think he thinks batting is where the future will be for him. People get ducks. I don't know.
I think it's very harsh if you turn around and be like, he's never going to play for England again. Like, it happens. But Max, you're a more tried and tested wicketkeeper than I will ever be. But I think it was clear that he was backup of a backup.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's okay at 20 years old. Like,
yeah, I mean, when I say we won't see him for a little while, that's not to say that one duck and you're out. It's just more to the point that he needed something special to. I would say in this series he needs to do something pretty big to remain sort of in the forefront of selectors' minds rather than in there as backup to backup. And that didn't happen for him. But
I would expect him to be in the team as a batter this time next summer. I think, something will go wrong against India or Australia. They're not all going to be there. It's like Root's leading them into battle. Not all of them are going to make it through to the other side.
And I assume that is to assume that the ECB continue with their plan of picking people whose county championship average is about 35.
It's not broke. Don't fix it.
We're gonna. Actually, my dad said that the other day to someone just like a neighbour, and she walked past and like, that's not a very good continuous improvement mindset, is it?
Well, some of the consultant, aren't they?
The world we live in.
That is a new one. I've not heard that before. Have you ever said that to someone, Ross?
Right. Should we talk about the declaration?
Yeah, we should. One last thing. I can't remember going into loads of detail, but Tim Southey actually was really good.
Yeah.
He nearly bowled New Zealand back into the game And obviously then Robinson and Burns had that partnership, which was really, that there were two pivotal moments. And we do acknowledge it was good, and people will say we didn't give enough praise to the New Zealand team. But we can talk about Conway for ages.
Have you got are the Indian batsmen quaking in their boots, do you think, on that showing? I think they were all round pretty strong.
No.
I think it was. I think it was a bit of a docile pitch. I think from that point of view, they're also missing Trent Bolt in this lineup as well. I think Santner was very ineffective, and I've got a couple of notes on kind of why. But I think all in all, we'll see what comes out of Edgbaston. I think at the moment I'm probably on Jack's bit of going actually not too worried at this point in time. But they've not played in a while, so
no. I thought Jameson looked pretty good.
Well, let's talk about the declaration, because I think some of this is tied up in why it was so thick of England to do what they did. Basically, Max, can you set the scene for us? What happened on day 5?
We were going into, having lost a day's play, we were going into day 5 with a situation of, England quite far behind, just over 100 runs, was it? New Zealand coming out to bat with what were they, 60 odd for 2 at the end of day 4. So we were looking at a situation of, what are New Zealand going to do here? Either they just go for some batting practice in the warm-up match it is, or you might see some fireworks. And I think England bowled quite well to keep to take a few wickets and keep things fairly tight in consideration. And it got to the point where around lunchtime where Kane Williamson said, you know what, let's try and make cricket fun and set you a target that is very much gettable, but might actually give us a chance of winning the game. Basically, it was a spirit of cricket declaration, wasn't it? The kind of thing you often see in the county championship when a team, because you've got 4 days and you've lost 2 days to rain, teams will like forego an innings and end up making it a 1-inning shootout. And it was that kind of vibe, that kind of thinking behind it. So
I disagree.
No. Really?
I don't think that's what was going on.
No?
No, I think if you look at that match, lunchtime, day 5, this is the reason Kane Williamson's declaration was good, is the same reason. Well, maybe it was, I don't know about good. I don't know how I rate that declaration, to be honest, but I don't think that's what was happening. And I think the reason that Root's decision to not go for the target was bad are kind of linked together. And that's, if you look at the expected outcomes based on the decisions that you make, so Kane Williamson's decision to declare and Joe Root's decision to not chase, then one of them is generating a far, far higher chance of their team taking a victory than the other one. Lunchtime, day 5, Kane Williamson has a choice to keep batting. And, at that point in time, if New Zealand batted until they were bowled out, probably there was a 100% chance of a draw, maybe 95% chance of a draw, because you never know with England. What he did was he said, we're going to call it a little bit early and we're going to give England a 10% chance of winning for us to have a 15 to 20% chance of winning, basically. And that is a reasonable decision to make, I think. If you go from 0% chance of winning a match to 20% chance of winning a match, whilst accepting a 10% risk that you lose the match, I think, that's kind of the definition of positive cricket. That's good thinking, in my opinion. If winning cricket matches is what you want to achieve, which is what it should be, what you're trying to achieve. Root has basically the same conundrum at that point. Accepting what I'm saying is true. Say it's 10% chance of England winning from, needing 270 off, 75 overs.
Yeah.
And that New Zealand have a 15, 20% chance of winning and the rest is a draw. By saying I'm not going to chase this, what you're doing is you're taking your 10% equity in the game, the 10% likelihood of you winning the match, and you're just throwing it away. Like you're saying, that's now the draws money, or that's now the New Zealand victory money and the draws money. And what you gain for that is maybe 5% of the equity that New Zealand have in the game. And that also goes to the draw. So you don't actually really gain anything positive. What you do is you take the good stuff you have, you chuck that away, and you ruin a little bit of what Kane Williamson had achieved by that declaration. And I just don't think in those circumstances, on that pitch, with the batting lineup England had and the bowling lineup New Zealand had, that was the right course of action. It wasn't a minefield. It was a pretty easy pitch to bat 75 overs on, if we're being honest. England could have gone out, I think, and at least tried to bother the scorer. I'm not saying here, like, you've heard my calculations. I think 75% chance of a draw, at least at lunchtime, on day 5 when that declaration is made. But, with that in mind, at least try and realize your 10% chance of victory. That's what bugs me about this. It's you completely abandon the possibility of you winning the game. And instead of it being a contest, you've got, I'm going to be harsh here, a bunch of cowards and a bunch of guys who came to play on the pitch. And that isn't a good sporting contest. And that's part of the reason the next 5 or 6 hours of everyone's life were so miserable. Does anyone disagree with that?
I wish I could, for the sake of an interesting argument on the podcast, but I totally agree. And the other thing that gets me is like some of the apologists for Root's decision. I mean, the arguments on that side, they don't make any sense anyway. Like, didn't even have to play that recklessly. It was 3.6 and over. That's not an unheard of test match scoring rate. It's a bit quicker than normal. Like, play the odd drive at a wide ball, see what happens. But I think I think cowardice is a pretty fair way of putting it, even if it might come across as a little harsh. But what it said to me was that we don't think this side, which it's not our first team side, but it's still got like a bunch of guys who you think might be Test match cricketers in the future. You're saying that
you think they're Test match cricketers now? You don't pick them. I honestly didn't get this. People were saying, England were right to block out because Bracey and Lawrence were on pairs. And it was like, if you thought they could bat in the first innings,
why have you picked them in the first place? Yeah. Basically, what we're saying is that we don't think that we can see off to a session and a half with 7 or 8 wickets.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, because you just you try a bit at the start. If you lose 2 quick wickets, you shut up shop. At least show some intent. And the fact that it's a really, really worrying message to send out, and that's coupled with the fact that Root afterwards said, "Oh yeah, we wanted to stay in the series. We didn't want to risk throwing a chance at throwing the series away." Which suggests to me that they genuinely thought they would petrified of losing.
Got to remember that, mate. Edgbaston is the scariest ground in the world to play cricket at. The New Zealanders, they're absolutely terrified.
More scary places, actually. What really annoys me is that, who cares if they lose? It's a dead rubber. Like, it's not. Now they've fought in the Test Match Championship and they're going for that. This was a game which is ultimately practice, and is game. What better situation to put your own team under a bit of pressure in a training game than going for that 275, what they were trying to chase?
Yeah,
I heard people saying this is a defense as well. It's
they're practicing saving the game.
Yeah,
why don't you practice winning the game? How about that? That might be better. Try that. Some people even saying that the people like us who are complaining about England shutting up shop would be the first to have a go for reckless cricket if they went for it.
No, more reckless cricket, the better.
That is absolute horseshit, isn't it?
Have you heard us talk about the ODI team?
I would genuinely rather we lost that game of cricket than what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So CricViz put this in a little bit of perspective. They thought they were making the point that they weren't making. In the history, or the opposite of the point that they ended up making. In the history of Test cricket, there have been 16 instances of a side making 273 runs in the 4th innings at over 4 runs and over. They've put only 6 of those matches have ended in the chasing side winning the game. That's 6 out of 16. That's pretty good odds.
Yeah, I mean, what odds were you giving us, Jack? Like 10%
I said 10%.
At the start? Yeah.
So I went and I got the 10%. I went and did some Stats Guru stuff before this and looked at loads of games that had happened in England and basically teams that had faced between about 70 and 80 overs and had that as their target. About 10% win, about 20% lose, and the rest are draws. Basically, it's quite easy. It's reasonably easy to get a draw, and I think on that pitch it's probably easier than the average day 5 pitch. Particularly, didn't have an entire day of cricket played on it.
You only had Mitchell Santner bowling spin. There weren't massive footholes.
Yeah, so I think the the try and win, we're going to go for the draw, was the obvious play. And they batted in the first innings. Ollie Robinson faced 100 balls. Anderson and Broad faced 25 each. It obviously was a pitch you could hang around on. There are a few other arguments going around as well that I think we should possibly
squash some of these. That'd be fun.
Touch on. Squash. One, that New Zealand are amazing. They are quite good. I'd say they're an all right travelling side. They're nothing better. They've won 5 matches of their 19 away games since they last beat England way back in 2015. 2 of them were against Zimbabwe, so 3 of 17 away from home. They're probably not the worst tourists in the world based on that, and they have won in I think they've beaten Pakistan as well. So they have got some away credentials, but they're not awesome. The other thing that was going around was that they were swinging the ball more than anyone ever, which was, true. They were getting a lot of swing, but as we said with the Ollie Robinson point, not necessarily what generates you the wickets. I think you probably want to have a look at the bowling averages of the New Zealand side as well. If you think that if you're so terrified of this New Zealand bowling side that you think it's impossible for England to chase these scores down, and you didn't know their names, and I just said their bowling averages at this point in time in England are 28, 36, 37, 60, and infinity. would that change your mind? It would change my mind. And I know that's just a small sample size in a couple of cases there, but I don't know. I think they're a good team. They were a team that you could have done something against. And we're not saying, go out and boom loads of sixes. We're absolutely saying, if you're 20 for 2, end of the game. Then you start blocking out. Like nobody wants, the England team to throw away test matches for no reason. Like they did under Trevor Bayliss. I mean, do you remember that game? It might have even been last summer when Butler and Stokes opened the batting. They were both out in an over, and it was like, oh my God, nobody wants that.
Enjoyed that.
But there's got to be a middle ground between Barnacle and going at 6 and over. That's all I think. I don't know if there's anything else. I would say I'm not blaming the batters here. I think they were told what to do. I mean, you can't have a go at Dom Sibley. He did exactly what he was told to do.
I thought, he indeed delivered. He did a proper Dom Sibley innings. What frustrated me was, what did frustrate me? Made me laugh more than anything was just the amount of aggro that was on our Twitter. Like it was lewd. Like cricket Twitter lost its head for the afternoon of the most boring game of Test cricket, and you got people who are paid to commentate and to pundit on cricket going, this is a disgrace. And I'd be like, oh, they should, what? How dare they? It's just like, oh, come on. For the good of the game, good of Test cricket, we should have gone for the win.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the context.
Just for the good of sport. What's the point in that? What's the point in that? What was the point in doing that? What did we learn? Dom Sibley could block.
When I was about 16. The team I play for now, we used to play in the Fullers League in Surrey, and they had timed games. If you remember timed games, where it's like you get 20 overs after like 6:30 or something. Mm-hmm. There are variations to that effect, but basically the idea was you could draw a one-day game, so you have winning draws and losing draws. So if you're like losing fairly badly, you just send out 8, 9, and 10 just to block out. And we were in one of those games, and we sent our bowlers out to just block for about 30 overs because we had no chance of winning because they'd piled on like 400. And one of our players, I remember vividly because it was such a great line, said, if we manage to draw this, it will be the cricketing equivalent of shitting in a swimming pool. And that is exactly what England did in that game. They shat in the pool.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a good way to end part 1, I think. Find us at the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, thecricketpod.com/Patreon. We're trying to get to 25 and we will retire. Sounds less good when you say it like that, doesn't it? And hit like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think about England's declaration. I want to hear whether there are any Joe Root apologists out there. Cool. We'll take a break and we'll be back with part 2 shortly.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
I think it was a disgraceful performance, and I think it should never be permitted to happen again.
That is very good.